Hey, welcome back to Let's Talk Careers. My name is Miss V, and I'm going to dive into a really personal topic today. And I hope that by the end of it, you are both reflecting on your own life and looking at how your own journey could be either helping or even hindering your children. So let's jump in. This week I spent quite a bit of time thinking about what we're really asking teenagers to do, and that's career decision making. And there's like two ends of the spectrum. On the one hand, we have a camp of people saying they're too young, they shouldn't be making any like real decisions at that age. And at the end of it, they'll figure it out like we all did. On the other side of the spectrum, you have people like me saying it is so unfair that you're really putting your head under the sand and thinking that we're not already asking a 16-year-old to make decisions. Why aren't we just calling it what it is and then teaching them a strategy that can help them navigate that decision and come out the other side feeling prepared, informed, and supported? So, wherever you are on that spectrum, and you may be at one end or the other, or maybe you're somewhere in between, I want you to reflect on what it was like when you were 16 years old. And if you're as vintage as me, that could have been a little while ago. But like when I think back to being 16, I don't ever remember anybody, whether at school or at home, sitting down with me and giving me a strategy. And like, in all fairness, my mom and dad struggled to have any kind of communication with me because I was a middle child. I was pretty determined to do things my own way. And I was like just trying to be a teenager who could fit into, you know, her friendship circle at whatever stage I was in, whether it was high school or moving into CEGEP and then eventually going off to university. And I found myself at that time really focused on my own journey. I wasn't focused on the figuring it out in the other side. And I think about that a lot because I know that in my everyday work, I'm advocating for having these conversations with teenagers. But at the same time, being the mom to teens and reflecting on my own journey, I know that they're not always in the right headspace, nor do they have that desire to think so far ahead. So, should we really be asking teenagers to create a strategy? And I'm going to say what most people probably are too shy to say out loud. And it goes something like this. We make teenagers learn all kinds of things that if we sat them down and said, like, are you really interested in learning this? They'd be telling you, no, absolutely not. But we still insist that they do because we believe as educators, parents, community members, that they need to learn this stuff because at some point it will be needed. And that's where I question about career conversations. So let's go back to what happened in my own journey. At 16, I went from prom to meeting the man that I would one day marry. And I had absolutely no idea on that day, on that night, that that would be the case. But it really was. And every decision I made after meeting him became about being with him. So if you would have sat me down and said, what do you want to do? Are you aware that you need a career strategy? I probably would have like totally dismissed it. But the thing about that is I didn't have mentors that talked to me about strategy. It wasn't coming from every angle. In fact, it wasn't coming from any angle. My parents were so concerned that I was so deeply, you know, in love with this person. And they were really concerned that I was kind of losing myself on that journey. And as a parent today, I so appreciate everything they tried to talk to me about. But of course, when you're young and blindly in love, you don't think about those things. But what I'm trying to say, and probably, the long winded way of saying it is a career conversation shouldn't come from one angle in a teenage life. Because if it does, if it comes from this one place, and being a teenager, really worried about like being included in friendship circles, exam results, you know, their own identity, they're going to block it out and that'll be that. But if it's coming from multiple places, all talking about similar things, building a strategy, offering information, introducing them to professionals that could inspire them to think about their career, inviting them to conferences where people are talking about how their gender impacted their career choices or their journey of life made them pause their career, or how promotion was more about skill than it was about degree, or how one degree was really not the ticket to the career, but it was the degree plus other things. And so when I'm talking about helping teenagers become informed about careers, I'm not simply saying they need a class at school and they need to get this done. What I'm saying is we need to create an ecosystem for them so that they're hearing similar messages from like minded people and also people who are going to challenge the status quo. And that is really, really important because teenagers today are walking into the future of work where what people in their social circles might have prepared them for, or what life was like in their social circle, may be completely, challenged when they make it to the other side. And I know that was the case for me. When I left home at 23 years old and I moved abroad, completely different part of the world, completely different culture. The one thing that I thought I knew was the person I was moving with was going to be my rock, was going to be my solid foundation. But when I got over to the other side, I realized that resilience was something that I had to find within me. And I made a lot of mistakes on that journey. But the person that I thought would be my rock suddenly became my obstacle emotionally because I had to be the rock. Because when we got to the other side, I realized that the person I thought that would take me through was the person that needed the most emotional support. And not only emotional support, he also needed the career support and he needed the confidence support. So suddenly, my role had taken this 360 shift, and I suddenly became the cheerleader, the motivator, the coach, the believer. And I had to navigate my way through a completely new labor market, a completely new cultural environment, and I had to figure out who I was on the journey. Now, let's go backwards. If I reflect on that 16-year-old Maria, and I wasn't 16 when I moved, but this is where that journey really began. If I were to reflect back to that 16-year-old, and I knew that by the time she would be 23 and would move abroad, I would want to make sure that she met people who moved abroad, that she met people who had to, realize that the degree that they thought would be really impactful in the country that they took the degree, well, that degree wouldn't be impactful in a new labor market. I would have wanted to make sure that she heard from several different people, not just family, because at that point, family wouldn't have been the strongest influencers if they were telling me that I needed to stay in the status quo, because I was really, really challenging status quo at that time. I wanted to be with this person and I wasn't thinking about my career development until I had to. So, strategy from my lens is not about forcing a teenager to go down a path. It's almost like a first aid kit. I see that as the metaphor. That first aid kit, you make sure that it's fully stocked and you put it in a place that you know you'll be able to find it when you need it. But you're not tapping into it every day. it's there when you need it. And that's what a strategy is about. It's not about locking a teenager down. It wouldn't have been about locking younger me down. It would have been about telling me, hey, this is the strategy. It's in your first aid career strategy kit. If you ever find that you're bumping on the road, or if you're ever finding that you become challenged, I want you to know the strategy in here, some of the things, some of the tools, some of the resources that you have, they're going to be able to help you navigate through those obstacles or barriers. And that's why I think it's so incredibly important that we empower teenagers with career education, because career education isn't about going to university. It's not about getting that one job. It's about helping a young person understand the complexities of the future that they're going to be living in, and helping them to map out key milestones in the life that they want to be designing, and understanding how and if they'll be able to navigate with the skill set they have at such a young age. And if not, what kind of skill set do they need to equip themselves with if and when they arrive at these different milestones? Anyway, I wanted to keep today short and sweet. And I wanted for you to remember that when I'm talking about making sure that you are sitting down and having career conversations with your children, I am not pretending that that's an easy conversation to have. I know it's not. I'm a mom. I had 3 kids. I took 2 daughters through their career discovery journey. Both of them, I was not the strongest influencer in that moment, but I was a resource in their career first aid kit. And they tapped into that resource when they wanted to, and not necessarily when I thought they needed to. But at the same time, I also tried to ensure that there were other people in the tribe that they could connect with, whether it be a professional mentor or a teacher or a counselor, or maybe a video, something that they could add to that career toolkit. And today, as I speak, I'm helping my 16-year-old navigate his future career. And his ideas are completely different to his sisters. And I need to appreciate that. And I can't enforce my ideas. And there have been times when I've realized I'm becoming the barrier to him being able to explore. I need to get out of the way. And that's what I want you to reflect on. Are you the only person in the tribe and it's not working out with your teen? And if you are, who can you tap into? Like, what kind of team and tribe? And they don't need to be people in your immediate circle. I encourage you to go outside that circle. So I'm not sure, I probably rambled on, but the idea is today I want to leave you with food for thought and inspiration for you to tap into your own journey, understand what your career first aid kit was and is, and look at your children and think, are you the best influencer at this time? And who else can embark on that journey with you? And if you're looking for support, head over to my website and check out the Virtual Careers Hub. I designed it to help teenagers and parents explore together and learn together and navigate future career decisions. Thank you all for joining me. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. I tried to keep it short and sweet and informative and inspirational. And I can't wait to speak to you all again next week when I bring another topic that I'm probably going to be inspired to talk about on the night before or maybe the morning of the podcast recording. Bye for now.